Technique is a natural phenomenon we seldom pay conscious attention to, yet we have an intimate relationship with. It is an innate and necessary process of creative existence and life. It can be found in all things and all expressions in the universe. It is a creative force, a universal force, that is foundational to experience, but almost goes unacknowledged in its purest form. It is the method, the tool, and the structure of experience used towards some intention or to attain a result. It is the manifestation of intention, how it flows into the physical. It is the structure of intention. For an experience to occur, life to be formed, an intention to be sought, or a result achieved, there must be a method, structure, or sequence of movements that guides the creative process. It simply is a part of life. This does not mean technique must be rigid and uncompromising in its method. The natural state of technique is one of flow and flexibility, but it also has a firmness that is necessary to create the boundaries of experience. It allows for spontaneity and organization at the same time. Its movement is fluid enough to allow a creative process, form, and experience to be malleable, but it also has a structure that gives it its creative definition. This is apparent in the structure of this universe. There is a method to how stars, planets, solar systems, galaxies, and biological life are formed and how they operate, and at the same time, incredible variance in the expressions and structures that emerge. In fact, natural technique always produces a degree of variation when creating. It may use the same foundation or have similarities in the methods or movements applied, but it does not produce a repetitive clone of experience. For example, think of how you take a shower or a bath. You do not create a completely new way of cleaning yourself every shower you take, nor do you choreograph your movements like some robot so every shower is the same. Instead, taking a shower becomes a spontaneous, almost unconscious process where there is a method you follow to how you wash your hair and your body, but there's always enough variance to your movements that prevent it from being a repetitive and rigid experience. There is an intention to get clean that motivates the process, but it doesn't prevent spontaneity and flow. This is the same in the expression of physical form. No experiences or expressions of biological form are ever identical. There are no babies born into existence that have the exact same internal and external makeup, even though the human body has the same foundational blueprint and parts despite variations in expression. The human body is a technique to facilitate the human experience. The same applies to all biological forms of life. There are always differences and variations that allow for unique expression and experience. This is how natural technique is used to organize and create experience. If you intuitively understand the expression of natural technique, then distorted technique becomes easy to spot. Distorted technique imposes a rigid structure over experience that seeks to produce conformity and protocol, reduce variations in experience and expression, and eliminate spontaneity, flow, and freedom. It seeks to create a predictable and precise methodology that is followed exactly or close to it. It confines the flow and flexibility of life and imposes mechanization and protocol. It is geared towards absolute efficiency of the intention that is sought. This focus reduces all experiences to being measurements of efficiency and productivity of some sort. It does not allow experience to just be what it is. Those who employ distorted techniques are seeking control over experience and reality because they fear vulnerability, uncertainty, and losing control. To the contrary, natural technique is equipped to deal with uncertainty because it is adaptive and flexible. Distorted technique forces an automation of the creative process. There is an automatic methodology to a given experience one must follow to achieve a stipulated result. It takes the creative power away from the individual and puts it in the metaphorical hands of the technique utilized. This creates a dependency on the technique used. The end result is only as important as following specific technical protocols. Freedom to create is replaced with obedience to specific techniques and their methods. However, natural technique instills confidence and empowerment because the person utilizing it is not bound to strict methods and unwavering protocol, but possesses the power to adapt, modify, and change tactics if needed. One version of technique forces a person to give away power, while the other empowers. Distorted versions of technique are utilized by every system of control in existence. Whenever a system, individual, or entity seeks control and power over others, they will deploy distorted techniques, whether consciously or unknowingly. It may take various forms, from brute force to subtle strategies of manipulation and coercion. No matter the form, there is a strategy deployed to limit an individual's choice of expression and experience so the intention of the manipulator is manifested. There is a strategic separating of the individual from self-empowered and self-directed living, and through forcing an embrace of distorted technique, a reliance on the method of living that gives power to the individual controller or system of control. These controllers will often claim that reliance on their distorted techniques are for the interest and well-being of the individual. It is for their safety, survival, convenience, or redemption. They sow distrust in an individual's confidence in their own techniques, and distrust is the key to opening the door that invites in distorted technique. Religions, tyrants, governments, institutions, belief systems of all kinds, these all tell the individual that they have the techniques that should be followed. Do not trust yourself, they say, for our techniques are most efficient in getting what you need. Not only is this a lie, it is also interfering with an individual's creative process. These control systems, built on distorted techniques, are impeding the unique and personal creativity that flows out of an individual's natural technique when responding to life. For this reason, we should keep a close eye when we are asked or coerced to use distorted technique, because there is often a tyrant lurking in the shadows, looking to achieve its own distorted intent at our expense. The modern technological society we live in now has further ingrained distorted technique into our daily operating system. The schedule of our work week, the routines of relaxation we rely on to de-stress from our lives, the regimented errands and responsibilities we must keep up with to continue operating in society, the reliance on technological gadgets for living, working, and entertainment, the hyper-focus on materialism to maintain an image, the constant pressure of conformity, the rules and regulations mandated to follow, the compartmentalization of every individual into a specialized field of work, and the outsourcing of our issues and responsibilities to relevant experts. All of these things culminate in turning the modern human into an individual who is nothing more than a self-aware robot programmed to make decisions based on the mandated techniques of society. He/she is stripped of the trust, confidence, and ability to autonomously create their own experience and expression of life. There is always someone or something that is better and more efficient you should give your power over to. Modern society is designed not for the individual to create their lives how they see most satisfying and fulfilling, but for the perpetual forward march of technological progress and innovation. Thus, our society becomes merely a humongous laboratory for developing more and more efficient techniques and the individual becomes a tool to apply these techniques. The result is widespread reliance and dependency on distorted techniques as we lose the will and confidence to create our own natural techniques for living. We fall into a mechanized, regimented existence where protocol is prioritized over autonomy. Our creative impulses become dulled and redirected towards the intentions and goals of the societal technological system. Distorted technique is also apparent in personal patterns, routines, and beliefs we develop as methods for controlling our experience. It is found, for instance, in our conscious and unconscious patterns of how we respond to emotional triggers. We develop patterns of responding to events and triggers that become techniques we apply again and again to ease emotional discomfort and provide a sense of safety and comfort. We become dependent on these distorted techniques to regulate our emotions. Although this is an adaptive response we've developed to soothe ourselves, we can only achieve so much with these responses. Remember, distorted technique is employed for efficiency, and this is why we deploy the same techniques over and over because we know they will bring relief. However, this relief is temporary and will only go so far. By relying on the same techniques again and again that don't actually address our wounds, we are keeping ourselves from reconciling and transmuting our emotional wounds. Distorted emotional techniques keep us closed off and repeating the same experiential loops. We can only break our patterns and loops by opening up, embracing the fullness of our experiences, and allowing ourselves to flow into natural technique to address our emotional wounds. Say whenever you get upset, your first response is to shut down, sulk, become quiet, and ignore those around you. This becomes a distorted technique because you're doing the same thing every time you're upset and essentially reliant on it. It has become the technique you have given power over to. It's fine to use sometimes, but reliance on it means you keep repeating the same experience and you cannot change things or grow this way. This pattern of responding has become a confining structure that limits your expression and experience. Instead, an approach rooted in natural technique may look like you taking a step back and asking, "Why am I upset?" It could then involve exploring where your feelings stem from, the root of the issue. Then you can acknowledge why you're feeling that way and achieve a greater understanding. This self-analyzation would put you in an empowered position to address the foundation of the issue. From that point, you could choose a method such as journaling, meditation, deep contemplation, talking with a close friend, or anything else that helps you address your feelings. This approach would be an example of using natural technique because you are creating a loose structure to follow, but it is a spontaneous process and you still have the freedom to go off towards whatever direction you are taken. You have initiated a flowing process that will allow you to experience things more fully and create more opportunity for new expressions to emerge. It also empowers you to direct your own process. Most of all, it encourages self-development and evolution. There are innumerable ways we fall into distorted techniques. We can find examples in every area of our lives. They also permeate our societies and cultural structures. It is not important to discuss every example. What is important to understand is that distorted technique is directed by wounds. The wounds of control, safety, and vulnerability most of all. We all have trauma and wounds from this lifetime, our genetics, and all other incarnations throughout the universe that keep us hooked into distorted techniques. They provide us with comfort, control, convenience, and safety. We've had to rely on distorted techniques throughout our universal journeys. It is how our incarnations have survived. Because when you are not connected to your inner being, your soul essence, you need to connect with what makes you feel safe and secure outside of yourself. Now it is time to come back to ourselves, feel the safety and unconditional love of our inner infinite beingness, and reconnect with what is natural. Natural technique can help us do this. It helps us remember the power and flow of our creative abilities. It facilitates a fuller experience of life, as distorted technique confines it with its need for control. Natural technique reminds us how we operate in our natural state as creators. It encourages our autonomy, empowers us, and tells us to trust ourselves. It shows us we have the power and tools to embrace the adventure of life. Becoming aware of how we use distorted technique and embracing natural technique is a key for unlocking greater creative potentials for ourselves and facilitating a return to what is natural in our world.